everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. If the evening wasn't special enough, we're going to start. You've been hearing him in the background, but we're going to move him to the forefront for a second. And Craig Werth, one of my favorite musicians, I've got to not only hear him play music across the years, but also spend time with him. He's almost as funny as he is a good guitarist and singer. He might be more funny, actually. And I think it's probably... But anyway, we're thrilled to have him tonight, and Craig is going to play a couple of songs for us, and then we'll have Nancy come up and start the reading. Craig Werth, everybody. All right.
It's my great honor to warm up, to be the opening act for Nancy's beautiful, beautiful poems. These are two songs of Nancy's request. The first is Tiny Stars. He just learned these new chords. He barely knows his words, but it's his big chance for being heard, and he's on in 6 more minutes. She's played for quite some time. She stops and starts on every line. Her heart's been broken like yours and mine, but she dares to sing it out. In coffee houses, corner bars, in office space, in your own backyard. Some sing on stage, many more in cars. God bless these tiny stars. He plays in his one room. No one's heard, but they will soon, when he gets it right. Just this one tune he's been working on for years. She drove 3 hours to this place to sing out her heart to 7 faces for $20 and a taste of telling her own story. Coffee houses, corner bars, an office space in your own backyard. Some sing on stage, many more in cars. God bless these tiny stars. Light, thousands of them burning bright. You can hear them sparkle in the night. All these tiny stars, and I am one, you may be too. If you hear me and I hear you, then we'll both know we're getting through to at least one other. Coffee houses, corner bars, an office space in your own backyard. Some sing on stage, many more in cars. God bless these tiny stars. You've assembled some great listeners here tonight.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to
Thanks,
share
Craig.
that. when I go, there will be remnants of my smiles, my footprints in the miles of this path I've come through. And when I go, there will be traces of my face, my echoes in the places that I have been to. And I'll not be gone when I go, I'll not be gone, I'll be loving you so. I'll not be gone when I go, all of my love, all I have loved will be near when I go. When I go, there will be fragments of my ways, my threads through each day of each year you grow through. And when I go, every psalm that I have played, any music I have made will be woven round you. And I'll not be gone when I go, I'll not be gone, I'll be loving you so. I'll not be gone when I go, all of my love, all I've loved will be near when I go. And when I go, the color of my eyes, their warming, their surprise will still gaze upon you. And when I go, the shadow of my stance, the movement of my hands will be dancing round you. And I'll not be gone when I go, I'll not be gone, I'll be loving you so. I'll not be gone when I go, all of my love, all I've loved will be near when I go. When I go.
Craig. Always a joy. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. It's certainly a special event. I've known Nancy for quite a while now. We've been in the same workshop together. By the way, I work here at Water Street Books as well. But I've known Nancy a long time, and so I've had a front row at a lot of these poems over the years, and got to see them through all their different manifestations. And one thing I was always, I knew right off the bat with Nancy that how serious-minded she was about the craft, and really had this, really kind of attention to detail that you don't often, you're not exposed to with other poets as much. As far as just a little bit of business, it's very short business. You don't have to worry about like where we go in case of or anything like that, like before a concert. But I did want to say that we do other poetry events here. We also do the Ferguson Reading Series, which is every month, the second Wednesday of every month, and we have a one featured reader. Nancy's been a featured reader here before, and we also have open reading slots afterwards, and the next one starts at 7 o'clock because of a conflict. But we'd love to see some of you come out for that as well. So anyway, yeah, this is a special evening. This doesn't happen too often in the life of a poet, and it's one thing to get to write these poems, to attend to these poems. I mean, they're very demanding, and but then it's another thing to gather them all together and to put the necessary work into, you know, arranging all the design and the covers and the blurbs and getting people out, and it's quite an undertaking. But it's also great to recognize someone and all the hard work that they've put in over the years. It's also good, also too, for poets who aren't putting out, you know, books routinely. One of the things that's a real joy about putting a book out is you get to kind of clean the table off for a while. So it's a nice feeling to like get these poems that you've been working on such a long time and feel like you've got them at least to the place you need to get them for, and move on to new material. Most of you know Nancy's background, but she has one other book, Beryllium Diary, which came out with Pudding House back in 2007, and then was reprinted by Igneus Press back in 2015. I remember we had a wonderful launch for that over at Book and Bar over in Portsmouth. She's been published in numerous reviews, Café Review, Calyx. I wasn't going to say it because I never know how to say it. Omphalos, I don't know. I think I remember it having something to do with navels, James Joyce, but in the Greeks. But that's about where it ends. You know, outstanding magazines like Phoebe and Slipstream. She's also worked as a writing consultant at Plymouth State, where she also got your master's degree. And helped and worked with students and faculty and staff there. And now for the poems, a few words. Austere and real-timed when they need to be, restless and not settling on the page when they must. The testimonials in Unholy Ghost are rhythmically arresting and persistent in the unspooling of those truths we've been taught to shush, if not shut out altogether, as well as sidestepping those lip trappings so difficult to tell apart from them. These tough-minded accounts gain insight through the movement between the inwardly designed and the outwardly sung, taken up. They act up but still get at the facts. They pinpoint but still spin. And they're unsparing in the way they let light see to sin and even let words stun, gun towards some provisional finish, the poet understanding that they can only be as sure as the reader trusts them to be. Ultimately, these poems do not trade in on that oft-tried rhetorical droning or this latest idea of triggers being warmed into indistinguishable garnishes, but rather on a higher-aired witnessing that is set on repair, a life attentively raised to art. And that's something that Nancy has done so well in this book, and we're privileged to have her here tonight. And please give a round of applause to Nancy Jane Hill.
My book is missing. It was up here.
Did I take it?
Yeah, I think you may have.
Oh, here it is.
I took your book.
And my notes.
That's for me.
Actually, this isn't it. Someone else has it. Well, that's not good.
This doesn't have notes either.
Am I looking here?
Yeah. Sorry, everyone. I don't know what happened to it. Hey, Martine.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm just gonna basically wing it a little bit because the book with my notes. Can everyone hear me?
I think I might have taken it, but I don't. This doesn't have notes.
The book with my notes is gone.
Nothing
It was
like
up
that.
here. On
It
the
was up
stand.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I'd be the obvious culprit. Were the notes written in the book?
No, they were. There was a piece of paper. They were
Oh, wait a
typed
minute.
up.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. No, you're just handing me the introduction. No.
Okay. Well, that is interesting. So I'm going to be winging it, but not really, because I kind of have this down, I hope. So anyway, thank you all for coming. I had a list, a gratitude list, on that piece of paper, and this is a little disconcerting. But I'm going to try to go through it and thank everyone, and if I forget you, I'm really sorry. First of all, I want to thank Craig for his amazing music. And Mark for the introduction.
Stealing your notes.
Yeah, wherever they might be. And the book I put it up here for safekeeping. And Street Bookstore for having me. Especially Stephanie Kuiper, who is the events coordinator here. Oh, she's back over there? Okay. Okay. Okay, and Kimberly Cloutier-Green and Betsy Scholl. Kimberly's right there, and Betsy couldn't make it tonight, for their blurbs on the back of the book. Baron Wormser also for his blurb on the back of the book and for being with me through the whole process of the making of this book from its inception. Let me see, who my Bill Burtis for helping out with helping out with the food. My son Dan for promoting me on Facebook. My daughter Mandy for making delicious chocolate chip cookies, which I hope you will all partake of. Sharon Olds is someone that I want to thank because I started reading her work about 25 years ago. And reading her work gave me permission to write many of the poems in this book. So if you've ever read her, you understand kind of what I'm saying. Did I forget anyone, do you think?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Oh, S. Stephanie for the cake.
Oh, yeah.
Yay! The wonderful cake. Yes. Okay. I can't believe all the work I put into those notes, and they're not here, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so a lot of people ask me where the title came from. And Unholy Ghost, again, several years ago, I was reading Jane Kenyon, and she wrote this poem entitled Having It Out with Melancholy. And in that poem, she refers to her own melancholy or depression as the unholy ghost. And when I read that, I identified with it. Excuse me, I have some water here. When I read that, I really identified with it, and it was then that I started writing about my own depression. And that writing eventually, after many years, turned into the title poem of this book. Let me see. I debated whether or not to read the title poem of the book because it's quite long, and it takes me about 10 minutes to read it. But I decided that because all of you came out, you were nice enough to come out for this, that you deserve to hear the title poem. So I'm going to save that for last. And I'm going to start by reading some shorter poems. As most of you know, not very many of my poems are short. I'm going to start by reading some of the shorter ones and then move into the title poem, Unholy Ghost. And I think I probably didn't say everything I meant to say, but that's okay. Oh, Joe Perna. I'm sorry. He did the author photo on the back. There's another thank you. Okay. And my list of poems is on that list, so hopefully I'll remember. When I was a little girl, a little preview to this poem, it's the first poem in the book, called The Man in Her Bedroom Closet. And when I was a little girl, I was really afraid to go to bed if my closet doors were open. I had to have them shut. And to this day, if I go to bed and the closet door is open, I have to get up and close it. So that gives you a little idea about where this poem came from. And it is written in form. That's one thing that I really like to do because, yeah, people ask me if someone came up to me and asked me recently, is this book about your life? And I would answer that and say it is and it isn't. Most of the poems are definitely inspired by things that either happened to me or things that I observed during my life. But when I use form or use poetic devices, I'm able to turn that into something more than just about what happened to me. And the poetry takes on a life of its own, which at the end, or even during the writing of it, I'm surprised myself by the journey that it takes. So that's why I say it is about my life, it isn't about my life, it's not exactly the way things happened. The man in her bedroom closet. It's a pantoum, by the way, form. Some consider her a brave old woman, but deep down she's a quaking child who knows the man in her bedroom closet will emerge in the eye of the night. Deep down, she's a quaking child made to touch a dragon's fire in the eye of the blackest night, when a man in a pinstriped suit, spewing a dragon's fire, slips between soft cotton sheets, handsome in his pinstriped suit, and gazes with crazed desire at the girl between soft cotton sheets, who knows though her eyes stay shut. She rolls away from his crazed desire and prays for morning to come. She knows, though her eyes stay shut, the fire he'll beg her to touch. She prays for morning to come, when sunlight will scare him away. She knows the fire he'll beg her to touch, and cringes when he takes her hand. She waits for the sun to scare him away, and tries not to tremble or cry. She cringes when he takes her hand. This man from her bedroom closet has the power to make her cry. I consider her a brave old woman. Keeping with the theme of old women, I'm going to read this poem, There Was an Old Woman. It's called There Was an Old Woman, and it's a drastic revision from a poem that was in Beryllium Diary. There was an old woman who chatted with the ants that nested in her lazy Susan each June, and cheerfully wiped up paw prints from her kitchen floor, and laughed at the mouse who peeked out from her potholder drawer, and her elbows were as crusty as a crotchety old man, and she couldn't care less about meticulously made beds, and she threw open her blinds, allowing bright brocade to fade, and she drove in the snow with wide open eyes. Okay, I had the pages written down too in my notes. So this one is when I was 11 years old and my father was 40. He had his first heart attack. Heart attack number 1. Moments after your batch of home brew burst in the basement, I found you rolling on the floor, arms crossed, knees tucked, the way you taught me to do if ever I caught fire. I yelled for Mother, who stumbled down cellar stairs, housecoat agape, graying hair askew. Call an ambulance, she said. We visited you Easter morning after church. Eager to please, I twirled around your hospital room, purple pleated skirt swirling around pantyhosed legs, lily white blouse boasting my first bra. I was hoping to resurrect your smile. You rose up from your bed, promised to quit, and we, Mother and I, envisioned salvation. Until the spring of the following year, when you built the bar in the basement. Naughty pine all over, well stocked, cracked crucifix on the back wall. One of the reasons I'm so happy about having this book published is because there are 3 poems in it that are in memory of a very dear friend of mine, Steve Tronstein, who was like a brother to me, and he contracted AIDS in the 80s, or he was diagnosed with AIDS in the 80s, who knows when he contracted it, and he died in 1998 at the age of 47. So I'm going to read one of those poems for you tonight. And this one is also a pantoum, the same form as the first poem I read. Hummingbird, for Stephen, 1951 to 1998. A hummingbird darts toward pink, then away again and again, and flickering thoughts of you flutter in and out like joy, and away again and again. Blue smoke swirls close, flutters in and out like joy. Memorial Day gone by, and I forgot the swirling cigarette smoke from when I saw you last. Memorial Day gone by, and I forgot to plant pansies at your grave, yellow like your skin when I saw you last. Your eyes still blue as Carolina sky, and I placed pansies in your palms, yellow and blue like the bruises on your arms. We worshipped together the Carolina sky, stood on a deck overlooking the sea, green and gray like an old bruise, and your arms, thin as twigs, pinched of all sap. We stood on a deck overlooking the sea, and you spoke of journeys you would never take. You were thin, pinched of all sap, but still much stronger than me. You spoke of journeys to the other side, while I had flickering thoughts. You were always stronger than me, a hummingbird darting toward pink. Okay. The next poem I'm going to read is called The World According to My Husband. And lest we think it's my current husband, it's really about my former husband, the father of my children, Dan and Mandy, who are here. And it really speaks to how we make false assumptions about people, even people that we've known for a very long time. So, The World According to My Husband. If a poem doesn't rhyme, it's not a poem. If a radio station wanders into blues or jazz, he turns the knob. If a novel meanders away from plot, he closes the book. For years, I thought, no poet resides within him. No tenor longs to sing God's praise. But one evening, hands immersed in the suds of supper dishes, I heard mockingbirds calling to one another. Joy bounced back and forth like voices of children playing hide and seek on the first evening of daylight savings time, when bedtime is delayed for one glorious hour. Hands dripping, I walked to the window, saw my husband sitting on the porch, whistling and waiting, whistling and waiting. Well, that kind of brought tears to my eyes a little bit. So The next one is called Dead Dog Grief, and maybe if I look in the contents I can find what page it's on. Yeah. This one is a sestina. Like I said, I like to write in form. There's probably 3 or 4 sestinas in this book and 4 pantoums, a couple sonnets, that sort of thing. And like I said, that helps me to get away from a story exactly the way it happened and take leaps that I wouldn't ordinarily take. Following the rules. Paradoxically, following the rules gives me freedom. It's kind of odd, but that's what happens. Dead Dog Grief. Consider, if you will, a middle-aged man scattering ashes into a wicked winter sea, while his wife stays in their marital grave, wearing a feather pillow over her head, snuffing out visions of loyal dogs now dead, shutting up the perpetual bark of grief. Consider the hunching down of grief and all the tears wept by a man who carries to the shore's edge dead dog ashes and scatters them into the sea, while scavengers swoop from overhead, hoping to be nourished by the grave nature of this man's grave errand. Consider what grief he feels, never getting ahead, never being the kind of man who could rise above the sea and save his dogs from being dead. All of his passion spent on 3 dead dogs, and his marriage digging its own grave, the way his dogs dug for bird bones by the sea and came up with nothing but grief, the merciless snap of sand crabs, making the man want to cut off the little creatures' heads. Tearing of the flesh and mutual beheading, words that dripped with irreconcilable grief, the onerous path of this wife and her sad man. Dogs that saved the marriage gone to their graves. Ashes kept in urns for years. Dead love, dead dogs thrown into the sea. Ashes vanish like ghosts into the churning sea. Beach walkers, shell seekers turn their heads toward the water's edge and grieve the many years they've spent in deadly quarantine, never realizing the grave needs of lonely men. The silence of a dying sea echoes like grief. A man wades toward a salty grave. Awakened witnesses bow their heads. I'll read one more before I read the title poem. And this one was written for Bill, my husband, but it was written, it was also part of Mark de Carteret's postcard project when he was Portsmouth Poet Laureate. This is a revision of that since then. And it's called Fever, and the reason it's called Fever is because it began, I started writing it when that, I don't know if you remember that fall and winter with that terrible flu H1N1, and I had it. And Bill and I had just started dating, and we weren't seeing much of each other because I was sick. So that's how this poem started. Fever, for Bill. Could you come over and hold me till these teeth-chattering chills subside? I will ask nothing more of you. Just swaddle me in your arms till these fiery chills expire. I'm breaking, top to bottom, piece by piece, stained glass sung to shattering by a chorus of first sopranos. Have you written that poem yet? The one about cicadas invading canals during December's snow. Could you come over and read to me until the drumming in my ears disappears? Am I half crazed from gazing at constellations through the skylight above my bed? I'm alone with my dog, and she's delirious too. Please, could you come on over, hold me, till these teeth-chattering chills subside? Okay. Definitely need some water. Okay, the next one is Unholy Ghost, the title poem, and like I said, it was inspired from reading Jane Kenyon's Having It Out with Melancholy. It was, one of the thank yous that was on my list that I forgot was just everyone at the Frost Place. I went to the Frost Place festival and seminar several times, and many of the poems in this book were conceived there, I guess I would say, including this poem. And I think actually in a former version I actually read it there several years ago, but it's been revised tremendously since then. That's one thing that happens. A poem never seems to really be finished. I could probably still fix some of these, I'm sure. So, and this one has an epigraph, and it's from that poem, Having It Out with Melancholy by Jane Kenyon. Unholy Ghost, and the epigraph, when we were alone, you lay down on top of me, pressing the bile of desolation into every pore. 1. Sister. Your sister is dead, and so should you be. You, unholy ghost, said as you sat on my bed's tucked edge, morning and night when I was 3. Nothing on this earth could save me. Not the swaying of my bucket's swing while Mommy pushed me, nor the aroma of Mimi's molasses cookies baking. Not the guardian limbs of weeping willows, nor the prickly hedge that walled me off from the barbed tongues of next-door bullies. Your sister is dead, and so should you be, you said. Nothing on this unholy earth could save me. By 2nd grade, I was completely yours, though I won the spelling bee every week, and Miss Levine with the shimmery orange hair pasted silver stars on my pale, insensate cheek. 2. Father. Father loved to snap the strap of my bra after supper while I washed and he dried. Loved to sting my rounding ass with a quick snap of the dish towel. Often I would raucously laugh and snatch the stiffened towel from his grisly grip, but I was never any good at snapping. My weapon an impotent wave in the anxious air. It was the day I wore a tightly woven mini he first called me a whore. Sat me down beside him on the couch, knuckleballed my branded bony knee. This is what you need to watch for, is what he said, as his dry hand crept up my thigh to show me how a lecherous boy might try to trick me. And you, unholy ghost, proclaimed, just what you deserve, dressed like that. 3. College. You followed me to the small town campus where I fell in love with Odysseus, accompanied him to the land of the dead, and tried to persuade my sister's shade to drink from the pit my hero had diligently filled with the spilled blood of a lamb still bleating. When my sister would neither swallow nor speak, I abandoned my wandering lover, lay down for a long while with Wordsworth, held his head against my chest, and grieved with him his precious Lucy's death. My sister's shade approached me then. I felt her hand upon my heart. She could not speak, I could not weep. The weight was more than I could bear. Your sister is dead and cannot save you, you said, and with a smile enticed me to plunge into a long-necked bottle. 4. Marriage and babies. Hungover, yet able to stand on the edge of your quicksand pit, I met a man staunch as dawn who talked me out of jumping. And the babies he gave me, the fierce, miraculous pushing that pulled me out of shameful sludge and lifted my sullied heart toward heaven. But like a private eye with extra time, you sniffed me out and found me lolling in this clear, contented sea and hauled me to a whaling cave where women lay like dry fetuses. They'd all be better off without you, is what you said. And I wanted to slap you dead, then shred your impetuous tongue. 5. Sleep. When I couldn't get drunk and couldn't stay sober, sleep became my drug of choice. I dreamt of endless hours of 10 below, of limber bottles dancing in the snow with corpulent, crazy, squawking crows. I dreamt of women sprouting raven wings and giving birth to hawks. But when I woke, it was you, Unholy Ghost, who swilled at my engorged marital breast. You will never be free, is what you said after I shoved you out of my unwilling bed. I bathed the children and washed their clothes. I brewed the coffee and buttered the toast. I hugged my husband and laughed at his jokes. 6. Rockabye. My 40-year-old arms rocked a bear named Huggins with the might of a tortured child. Take this cup and drink from it, you said. And when I wouldn't drink, you sent me back to Lothrop Street, where I watched a girl weeping while sitting on the edge of her father's rumpled bed. I rocked and I rocked, to and fro, till the tenuous bough broke. 7. Conversation with my husband. He says, why don't you try an antidepressant? Nothing on this earth will save you. I say, I should be able to pick myself up by the bootstraps. He says, but you can't bend over. I say, my wounds go deep as Goliath's grave. He says, but what about me and the kids? Aren't we worth living for? I say, the woman you married is already dead. He says, no. 8. Inpatient. One nurse rummages through my bag as though I were a terrorist bent on blowing up psych wards. These razors will need to be locked up. Another fires questions. Bleak bullets turn me into a frozen heap on a narrow, unmerciful mattress. Suicidal thoughts? Yes. Do you have a plan? Not since you locked up my razors. When was your last drink? A long time ago. Incest? Sexual abuse? Maybe. 9. Ghost Slayer. There came a doctor's thunder, Unholy Ghost, that silenced yours the way the ocean's pounding drowns out a gull's squalling. You can't go over, under, or around. There's no way out but through. Forgiveness is not condoning. Forgiveness is the gift of letting go. In spite of rising disbelief, I donned a novice diver's tank and dove into the whirling depths of ancient riptide sorrow. I turned up father's empty nips and mother's poisoned face. I dug up my sister's grave and scooped out healing grace. 10. Loons. When your savage sucking finally stopped, Unholy Ghost, I found myself gliding, a buoyant bird with solid bones. You're crazy as a love-struck loon, is what you said as I floated by. Your sister is dead, and so should you be. But I kept on paddling faithfully and diving for my daily bread. And when you tried again one night to slip your noose around my neck, my sister Karen's shade appeared above my quivering bed. I heard her haunting call. Love never dies, is what she said. Love never dies. Thank you. So one of the thank yous I forgot to make was to the publisher, Kelsey Books, Karen Kelsey, and she's somewhere out near Los Angeles. And the amazing thing about her was that I sent the manuscript, and she promised, or the public, she promised that I'd hear back in a week, and I heard back within a week. And she accepted it. So that's like totally, those of you who are poets or, understand that that's really totally unheard of. And the other thing is that every email she responded almost like right away or within a day. And that doesn't always happen either, right, Mark? So I just really, I want to thank her too for responding so quickly and being so easy to work with. So that I'm done, I guess, and and I hope that you will all stay. And Bill just went like this: eat and have some refreshments because there's lots of stuff out there. We'll cut the cake so you can all have a piece of cake. And if you want me to, if you've bought books and you want me to sign, I'm happy to do that. So let's just keep the party going. Thank you.